Mackenzie Mahoney from the Guide, and this is my recipe for pork meatballs with pickled jalapeno pesto and spice to meat. Use Don't Mess with Texas barbecue rub. So our pesto that we're making with our pork meatballs is not your typical pesto. I'm putting in pickled jalapenos to kind of go with the Don't Mess with Texas barbecue rub that we're adding into the meatballs. So for a pesto, a basic pesto is very simple. You're gonna have basil, you're gonna have pine nuts, you're gonna have Parmesan cheese and olive oil. Now what we're going to make is a little different. Basically what you're going to have is some Parmesan cheese, olive oil, my favorite's olave. You're gonna do some walnuts, fresh basil, garlic, and our pickled jalapenos. And of course, salt and pepper. So we're gonna do a quick pickling of our jalapenos for our jalapeno pepper pesto. When it comes to jalapenos, you kind of really have to be careful. I'm obviously touching the inside of it, and so I'm not gonna wanna touch my eye. But you're just gonna wanna cut them in half or whatever you'd like, and just take out the middle rib, which is, these little guys are what makes the jalapenos super, super hot. So I'm just gonna take those out. And I use a smaller knife because it's easier to maneuver. And if I use this, there's a good chance that I won't be able to, like that, I won't be able to really maneuver well, or, yeah, I don't know. So I remove all the seeds and the rib as much as possible. And then it's okay if a couple ribs, or if a couple seeds get into here. It's not going to kill you. Hopefully not. And then I'm just going to want to put them into small batons and put them straight into my jar that's already filled with peppercorns. When you're pickling, you can add any sort of ingredient you'd like. You know, bay leaves, you can add fresh ginger, turmeric, you can basically do whatever you want, but for this quick pickling, because it's just going straight into a pesto, we're just going to do black peppercorns. Now when you pickle, it's very simple. You're just going to want to take a vinegar and a water, equal parts, boil them up, which is what we're doing right now. It's ready to go. So you boil them up, and then you put it into a tight-fitting lid. So I would highly recommend doing this over a sink, and you just pour the pickling liquid in there, and then immediately lock it up. So you are going to want to have a food processor. Now these are very expensive, not everyone has them. You can do it in a blender, but you're not going to get the same results, and it's going to take a long time, and it also may short circuit your blender. So if you don't have one, try and find your best friend that may have gotten married recently, probably had this on their registry, and see if you can borrow it. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the garlic and the walnuts. And you're just going to pulse it, because basically what you want to do is just have it till it's finely chopped. So we're good to go with that. So once that's done, you want to pull this off. You want to add the Parmesan cheese. The basil. Oh my gosh, this smells amazing. And your pickled jalapenos. Now, you're not going to want to put the pickling juice inside of here, so open up your top. Now you can reserve the pickling liquid. I don't recommend it. If you end up pickling a lot of jalapeno peppers, then definitely reserve the pickling liquid. But we just had 2 small jalapenos, so I'm going to drain it. Now when you drain, any of the other spices and herbs that you put into your pickling liquid are obviously going to come in. So I recommend lifting the jalapenos out so that you don't get the other ingredients in, because they will definitely mess with the flavor of your pesto. So once that's done, you're going to want to put the top on it one more time. I always pulse if you're making small batches because you don't want to overprocess it. It'll get overheated and you may not have the same results. So now we're done. We're going to take our olive oil. And one of the best parts about a food processor is you have these nifty little compartments that you don't have to get everything all over you. Also, the food processor won't let you take off the top and use the system. So they have these nifty little contraptions. Where you're going to want to take is your olive oil. And you want to, the recipe calls for a certain measurement of olive oil. I think it is 2/3 a cup. But you basically want to stream it into the food processor and see what the consistency is like. You don't want it to be too runny, but you also don't want it to be too thick. So I'm going to, instead of pulsing, I'm just going to put it on. And we're going to do a steady stream. We're going to test it and see what it looks like. So now, you want to come on over, we'll see what it looks like. So the olive oil is basically fully incorporated into the pesto, but at the bottom you can see there's a little pool of olive oil. So what you're going to want to do is take a spatula and just at the bottom pull up some of the mixture so that it, and wipe down the sides so that everything gets incorporated. So here we are, ready to make our pork meatballs. Now, there are 2 ways that you can make it. I have a boyfriend that has celiac disease, so I try to make everything gluten-free. So a part of this recipe has breadcrumbs. Now you can use plain old breadcrumbs if you'd like, or seasoned. I would not recommend seasoned just because you're putting a lot of seasoning in with the spice to meet you. Don't mess with Texas barbecue rub. But there's also another option. You have the gluten-free breadcrumbs. There's not much of a difference between them, but it's a good way for your friends that have celiac or have a gluten allergy to enjoy your dishes as well. So what we've got, so we've got our breadcrumbs. Today I'm not doing gluten-free. These are regular plain breadcrumbs. I've got Parmigiano-Reggiano cheese. I've got vegetable oil, what we're gonna pan fry the pork meatballs in. I've got 2 pounds of ground pork. I've got the Don't Mess with Texas barbecue spice blend, sour cream, 2 eggs, and some kosher salt. When you're working with meatballs, you really have to understand that you are gonna get your hands dirty. You have to really get into it. If you're kind of averse to touching raw meats, then get yourself some gloves. But if you don't mind getting a little dirty, just wash your hands properly and get ready to get down. So I'm taking our ground pork and I'm gonna put some salt in. Now, this is not the amount that I'm going to do. I actually in my kitchen always have a little bit of salt that's just free flowing that I can pick up and put into dishes as I want. So I'm just going to put two general pinches in, and also our Don't Mess with Texas barbecue rub. Now, I'm going to mix this well. As you can see, some of the rub is going to get in certain places, so you really have to. It's also really good to have a friend help you with this, because you're going to notice that you're going to mix this all together. So as you're adding ingredients in, it's good to have a friend for you to say, hey, give me the sour cream, give me the eggs, so that you're not cross-contaminating and you don't find yourself with raw meat stuff everywhere. So once this is properly mixed, you're going to add all of the remaining ingredients to the mixture. So you've got your Parmesan cheese, you want to add that in. You've got your sour cream. And you've got your eggs. Now, as much as I said you should get dirty, sometimes people have an even bigger averse reaction to working with raw eggs. So if you must, grab a wooden spatula / spoon and beat it around together. It's gonna take a little bit more time, but you won't be as messy. You won't have to wash your hands every 2 seconds, and you can really make sure that you get everything in there. I hope you have arm strength, because this is what really helps make the meatballs. So now we're going to cook off our meatballs. What we're going to end up doing is pan frying them in a skillet. So we're going to turn on the heat to about medium heat. And you're going to make sure that you cover the pan with just a little bit. So it's got some extras in there. Just a little bit more. What we're going to do is you need some cooking spray and like a foil covered platter, so that you can pre-form all of the meatballs before you put them into the skillet. So to make sure that they don't stick, you just want to put some cooking spray. I like to use an ice cream scooper. If you don't have an ice cream scooper, it's totally fine to use a regular spoon. You know, just get a little bit more than you would, put it on, and just use to form it with your hand. So I'm taking an ice cream scooper. Again, so it doesn't stick, I'm just going to put some Pam on there. It doesn't do anything to the cooking of it. And what I do is like that. So now, once your pan has gotten to the desired heat, you're going to want to take your meatballs and pop them into, when you lay them in, you really want to spread them around, because what can happen is they can stick to the pan. So I suggest getting them ready to go, letting them get used to the heat, and then putting them off to the side. Because you're going to probably have to do this in batches. You don't want to have to scrape the bottom of your pan, because you have all of these burnt pork bits, and then start over again. Because what's happening is that the seasoning and the spice is really incorporating into this, so it makes it taste really delicious. So as you can see, they are browning up very nicely, and you're going to want to check them. That is exactly what you want. So then move it on to the other side, and just like you did when you first put them in there, kind of give them a little whirl around the plate, around the pan. So that. So you're going to take the pesto. You can assemble this however you'd like. I really enjoy having the pesto on the bottom, so that with every cut you have of the meatball, you get a good amount of the sauce onto it. So however you'd like. I like a generous serving of pesto. And then you're going to take your meatballs and place them into the dish. Just going to take some Parmesan cheese and add it to the top. You're more than welcome to take, if you have some extra basil. I ended up using all of the basil that we had. If you end up having some extra basil, you can also put a little bit on top, maybe a little sprinkle, a little swirl of olive oil on the top, whatever you'd like.